Are you
So
ready?
ready.
Oh, sick. All right then. Well, I guess to begin with, can you introduce yourself by stating your name, current job title, and the organization you belong to?
Uh, my name is Noah Helmer. I am a sixth grade social studies teacher at Waukee Community School Districts in Iowa.
So, how long have you been at this role?
This will be my second year. This year is my
Hmm.
second
Wait, how long have you been teaching?
year. This is my second year.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. And how many students do you teach total?
This year I see 150 students per day.
Hmm. So it's like 30, 40 something per class? Or is that to.
I teach six classes and it varies. Like my smallest class is only 12, but my biggest is 31. So it's usually
Hmm.
around 30 though.
Mm-hmm. And the industry you work is obviously education. Okay. All right. Could you briefly describe your key responsibilities as a teacher?
Um, the main ones, I guess, would be fostering positive learning environments and learning outcomes for students, implementing equitable teaching strategies for diverse learners. I would say managing classroom behaviors, and there's probably a lot of other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head, but those would probably be the biggest ones.
Alrighty. Thinking about your career, what has been your greatest professional achievement in your leadership role?
I received a distinguished teaching award last year.
Hmm.
And the circumstances for that is you have to be nominated by students for it, and I received that last year. So yeah.
So, like, did you use any like specific strategies or processes to get that award? Like, were you actively
Uh,
seeking out that award?
no, it's more so of students who notice their teachers working, really hard to employ good teaching strategies and um, best practice as well as a big one where educators notice like what works for me may not work for other teachers, and so it's just how well you implement your best practice.
Okay. Okay. So, do you consider this achievement impactful for your organization? So, like, for your school, is it worth
I would say so, yeah.
anything?
In terms of like like money or like pay raise, no. More so just like a way to show appreciation towards like my hard work that I put in, and for students and the school to show appreciation.
So, like, if you like stacked a bunch of those awards, could you not get like, I don't know, more money?
No.
Oh,
Teacher pay in the state of Iowa, I don't know if any state does it, but it's not based off performance.
oh, so
Um,
you can't leverage any of the awards to
you can
get. Okay.
no. It's a lot of teacher unions or teacher like pay bargaining usually happens with like all teachers because all teachers are seen as valued regardless of the subject that they teach.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like they just try to keep it the same for all teachers.
All right. So this question's a little whack. So, looking at servant leadership characteristics like listening, empathy, stewardship, and building community, what do you think you demonstrated the most just in your role?
But I have to pick one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can do multiple, but
I would say like being a teacher, especially being a well, and I don't think it matters what age you teach, but being a teacher, you have to have all of those skills. And I call them skills and not necessarily qualities because sometimes you have to learn how to do them when you're in the role. Maybe not something that's like inherently something you do. But I would say empathy is a big one because I teach middle school. So the students that I have are 11 and 12 years old, and they have to know you care, or otherwise they will really struggle to learn from you because that connection's not there. Um, the community building one is just an effective teaching strategy for all grades and for all ages. Because if students don't feel like they are a part of the community, then that can be uh, or having a community is a big indicator for success for students, and that's backed by like research and uh, evidence-based learning and things like that. So I would say all of those are definitely something that I would do in my daily job.
Swag. Can you describe a significant challenge or ethical dilemma you faced as a teacher?
Significant challenges, I would say. Um, Student behavior can be one, just because student behavior can disrupt the learning of others, or it could potentially put myself or other students in, harm's way. And so that's always a big concern, making sure the classroom environment is safe for learning, and also students learn if they feel safe. So if they don't feel safe, then kind of not doing that learning part. Um, Ethical piece could be like what I'm teaching, but I would say that I always stick to my standards guidelines for the state of Iowa to make sure that I'm teaching what is being asked of stakeholders like parents, government officials, and the school district at large, just to ensure that there's no bias or there's no personal opinions thrown in there. They're just getting a education that is evidence based, and we believe that the state of Iowa should be providing for students in the public education sector.
So, what factors made this
Yeah.
situation difficult? For example, market conditions, internal conflict, or competition? We got to scope it for
Um,
education.
I would say like the challenges can pose like internal conflict because now schools aren't businesses, right? I guess. Well, I guess if you want to frame in the frame of a business, right?
Mhm.
Like students are going to be the ones that are receiving a service, which is education. And if that service is not provided to them in the best like shape, meaning like students were being a disruption, or maybe another external factor like there was a threat of violence at school or something like that, then that product is going to be interfered with, and so they won't be receiving that at the best quality possible.
Okay.
Could also harm like marketing in the sense of like we're trying to convince parents to, obviously send their kids to our school. If parents hear that students are acting a certain way, or if teachers aren't handling certain situations well, or if our administration isn't doing anything to support students that are acting out in class, then that could potentially impact student enrollment.
Do you have like actual examples of that?
Of the disruptions, or of what?
Yeah, the disruptions or the enrollment thing.
I would say, so like in the state of Iowa, and it might be different in Arizona, I'm not sure, but in the state of Iowa, parents are allowed to open enroll, which means if they do not want to go to the school district that is in their neighborhood, they can take their students elsewhere, and they actually receive a voucher, which essentially gives them a tax break for the amount of money that they would pay on their property taxes that goes to the school that they would go to. So if a parent decides that they want to go to a different school instead, they can. So that also incentivizes schools to make sure that they are, at their A game at all times, because otherwise parents that can't afford to take their kids out of their current school, they will.
That makes sense.
And so that could hurt, if you consider that like a marketing aspect, that could hurt the marketability of our school.
Okay. During challenges when you're teaching, what type of influence or authority do you use to get the students to support your decisions? So, if you
Um,
give me some definitions.
I I would say there is a fine line that you have to walk with teaching, of being authoritative but not being too authoritative. And it's like you have to really just learn when is the time to be an authority figure versus when is a time where you can let like the reins go a little bit. And so if I provided some examples of that, usually where I allow students to be a little bit more expressive and excited and things like that would be like review games in class, because that's usually a big motivator. typically they would not be following like what I would consider like classroom expectations at that point, but they are having fun. And so sometimes you have to let go because they could be having fun and they're still learning. Um, there are some cases where students will try to get away with like doing things that are not appropriate or that are potentially harming the learning environment for other students, in which case that would be a time where you need to step up and like I call it using my teacher voice, but you use your teacher voice to make sure that they understand like what they did was wrong, and then you have what's called a restorative conversation of making the student know what they did was wrong, understanding how that could impact the feelings of others, and then how to move forward and how to continue on with that, like continue on in the class.
That's good. So, like, when you use more strict behavior or approaches, how does it affect the outcome of the morale of your students?
Um, if I have a good relationship with the students, there is no effect in morale because students will understand that I am looking out for their best interest. Where I not only am my goal is to teach them social studies, but it's also to help them be a good person. And if they understand that that's where I'm coming from, then they will understand why the conversation or the restorative conversation or consequences need to be had. So that way the behavior is not repeated again.
Have you had any decisions that you regret? Something like where you put down the hammer too hard and the morale of your students was like lowered a bunch?
Yeah, I would say the beginning of this year, and I changed this now, but at the beginning of this year, I was a little bit too strict on like volume expectations for students when they're working. And at first I was like, oh, there's no talking, you know. And I'm like thinking to myself after the first couple of weeks of school, and I'm like, that's not really conducive for middle schoolers because it's really hard for them to be focused on a task for an extended period of time without talking or anything like that. And so I realized that I was being a little bit too strict and kind of setting them up for failure. And so what I did was I changed that to being more structured, of like if they're talking, this is what they should be talking about. And if they want to um, be talking to a classmate, this is what they need to be doing, or something like that. And so it just has more structure to it for students that can't necessarily or struggle with maintaining that focus.
All right. All right. What's your organization's mission, vision, and overall strategy?
Our vision is inspiring learners who feel valued, challenged, and prepared to embrace tomorrow's opportunities. Our mission is that our school district is a rapidly growing and increasing diverse school district. We believe every individual's unique background and culture enhances our schools. By focusing on the joy of learning and growth for everyone, we create a dynamic work environment for our staff while engaging our students, families, and the community through innovative educational practices.
All right. And how does your role as a teacher contribute to the mission and vision?
I would say that uh, con- meeting in what's called a PLC, a personal learning community, weekly, actually more than weekly, to talk about student needs and their potential challenges that they might face. So that way we meet those before the students even tackle the content like on their own. So, and keeping in mind that we want students to be successful, and that also having a very clear measure for success as we're constructing lessons for students that contributes to that goal.
All right. Good response. All right. So, this next question, I don't know if this even applies to teachers. This next stuff is about like entrepreneurial stuff. I mean, we might as well. Okay. So, in your opinion, how important is it to have entrepreneurial skills like innovation and adaptation to like be a teacher?
Well, to be a teacher, you do have a lot of expectations for creating things on your own, and also meeting challenges that potential students have. So, for example, teachers are often expected to meet the needs of their learners in their classroom, whether they are equipped for that need or not. So I have some students this year. I teach sixth grade that don't read at a sixth grade level. And so what the challenge I have is how do I teach a student the content um, if they don't understand the content at the level that I am licensed to teach? In which case, you could employ a number of strategies, whether you contact or meet with a special education teacher or a elementary education teacher who teaches a similar subject as you. You could consult with AI resources that are able to uh, kind of form the content or the words into a language or reading level that students at that level would understand. So a lot of problem solving and like critical thinking is definitely needed.
Which entrepreneurial trait do you personally use the most in your leadership role?
I would say like critical thinking and problem solving because I would say 90% of my job is problem solving, whether it's from figuring out why a student is asking to go to the bathroom in the middle of me teaching and all the way to figuring out how to best teach students a specific topic or content area or learning target.
Have you measured how these traits help you accomplish like goals for your students? So like maybe like test scores or something.
I would say, wait, repeat the question one more time.
So how do these traits help you accomplish like students' goals?
Well, I think that I'm very transparent to the students about like what it takes to like keep like make sure that these lessons are um, worth their time to encourage critical thinking skills. And I would say I want my students, and it's a mission of every teacher at my district, to ensure that our students are being able to problem solve and critically think on their own without the need of an adult or of other students. And so keeping that framework in mind helps me create assessments, whether it's formative or summative assessments that encourage that growth mindset for students to continue to develop those problem solving and critical thinking skills.
So besides servant leadership and entrepreneurial thinking, what other qualities that you haven't stated before have been essential to your success?
What other skills
Yeah, that
did
you
you
haven't
say?
that you haven't stated before.
Um, Patience, I would say, is a skill. Um, Learning to be patient and to be aware of my own emotions so that way it doesn't impact my teaching. Because all students are coming from different experiences, different at home lives, and everything like that. And so some students, while I might think it might be a stupid question that they're asking me, that they sometimes might not actually know. It's my job as a teacher to teach them of what is expected for them at school, outside of school, helping them be a good person.
All right. What advice would you give someone today if they're preparing to become a teacher in the future?
Um, Make sure that you are going into education with the idea in mind that not everyone is going to be as supportive as you hope they would be, whether that's coworkers or students or parents or administrators, um, and that you are going to have to be by yourself at some points where you don't feel like there is anyone to support you. But you will find, regardless of where you go, in any school, I would say in any school around the country, you will find people that are there to support you, that have like-mindedness of supporting students, fostering positive educational outcomes, and building strong connections. And as long as you find those good people and those networks to surround yourself with, then you will be successful regardless of where you're at.
Solid. Sweet. How would you personally define effective leadership in today's business environment? So for you, it'd be like teaching environment.
I would say being a leader, you're only as good of a leader as the people that you lead. And so if the people of you that you lead are not reflective of your goals or are not reflecting what goals that you hope to accomplish, then that is a reflection of some potential growth areas for yourself. So for example, if my students are not being kind to one another, then it's my job to encourage them and to teach them how to foster kindness in my space or in my classroom or in other parts of the school. Yeah.
All right. And what behaviors do you believe are the most important for long-term success as a teacher?
Behaviors. I would say behaviors for me, like what is
for you.
gonna help me be successful.
Yeah.
I would say finding the positives where it's really easy for you to find negatives. You have to remind yourself that there is a lot of good in education, even if you might have a bad day, that a lot of times there were actually more good interactions that you had that day than bad interactions. And so remembering the good and trying not to hold on to the bad as much will prevent you from burning out and will keep you in education for as long as you want to be in it.
All right. Final question. Do you have any leadership philosophy that you follow that you would like to give us?
Can I say no?
Yeah, you can say no. You can say no.
I would say honestly, I follow the guidance of I want to be the type of teacher that I wanted in school, not the type of teacher that made me feel less than or unvalued or something like that, but a teacher that cared, that showed that they cared, because saying that they care versus showing is very different. And then also being the teacher that can help encourage other teachers to be their best version of themselves.
Alrighty. That was the last question. All right, Noah, we're done. We're done, Noah. We did it. We did it. Yippee!